7:01 here in New York City. More fallout this morning over Joe Biden's controversial pardoning of his son Hunter as the federal judge in California accuses the president of trying to rewrite history.
Now, in light of the pardon, more accusations are surfacing about the first son's very troubled past.
All right, Lucas Tomlinson's got the assignment. He's at the White House this morning. Lucas, fill us in.
Well, good morning, guys. That's right. The federal judge overseeing Hunter Biden's tax case took umbrage with President Biden's comments, saying that these charges against Hunter were politically motivated. The judge lashing out, saying, quote, "The Constitution provides the president with broad authority to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, but nowhere does the Constitution give the president the authority to rewrite history. The pardon not only absolves Hunter of his tax and gun cases, but also for any crimes or potential crimes committed over an 11-year period." The judge also noted this pardon could be seen as, quote, "exceeding the scope of the pardon power." It's a good thing you have an attorney on the couch there, guys. Biden for months said that he would never pardon his son. That line was repeated at the podium here at the White House by his press secretary for months. Of course, they also said for months that Biden would not be dropping out of the race. Hunter Biden's former landlord says the president's son has been slow to the hip, or Venmo might be more appropriate, stiffing him by over $300,000 in rent after Hunter stayed in his $4.25 million home in California. Sean McGuire posting to X, quote, "What happens to the $300,000 plus in payback rent that Hunter Biden owes my family from 2019 to 2020? Is that pardoned now?" Perhaps that's a good question for the White House press secretary who's traveling with President Biden in Africa, guys.
That's right. And Lucas, I think it was yesterday or the day before, KJP said that this particular pardon was not vetted through the typical clemency process that happens at the Department of Justice, which is just a couple of blocks behind you.
That's right. Many eyebrows were raised when the pardon covered this 11-year period. That's a large time period, of course. This is not just a pardon for a particular crime. It's everything over more than a decade, Steve.
Parking tickets?
Right.
Or maybe even something more serious.
Maybe.
Right. Thanks, Lucas. Appreciate it. So, number one, question of character. The character, Hunter Biden, who was living free from a Hollywood producer who decided to pay his overdue taxes and let him live with him for free, and I assume pay for his attorney, one of the most expensive and respected in Washington. Now we find out when he was living on his own, while the president was running for president, knowing his laptop was in the FBI hands, he's living in Venice Beach with Secret Service protection, rent-free because he decided to not pay rent. When people people's investments are in rental properties, especially on Venice Beach, it takes a lot to buy a little, and you have that there. And then when you complain, the Secret Service changed the locks and the landlord's locked out. That's the character of the person. If you are Joe Biden, vice president, and want to be president-elect, and you find out your son is not paying rent. Remember when a nanny or a landscaper without papers would hurt a candidate? Then you have your crack-addicted, hooker-addicted son not paying rent, living for free out on the West Coast, doing your international business deals, all of which is on the laptop that you left at a local repair shop. But having said all that, the fallout has to be beyond what he ever dreamed. And among the people who are his detractors is Gavin Newsom. I completely understand the instinct to protect Hunter, but I took the president at his word. So by definition, I'm disappointed and cannot support the decision.
Well, this federal judge is not even taking a position of supporting or agreeing with the pardon. First of all, she said, this is a press release. This is not a pardon. The second thing, they were very upset. The court took issue with them admonishing the court and saying that this was some political process.
Yeah.
The judge is like, pled guilty. What are you talking about? That this was the plea that he gave. So why are you saying that there's this mischaracterization of justice when he pled guilty to the charges here? And then you're saying that the court would somehow allow a court case to come before them that is not going to get due process. So there's multiple factors there. I also think when it comes to the legacy of Joe Biden, after he signed the crime bill and put so many people behind bars as a result of that, there is no way he escapes the political ramifications without pardoning all these other people that had similar
That's who the
backgrounds
King
as
Jeffords
well.
is asking.
So is he going to do that? I doubt it,
Right.
because that would be a massive release of people.
Well, and you know, message-wise, everybody knew he was going to pardon Hunter. But Democrats, rank and file, are stained at the approach he took because and this is exactly what the judge, Mark Scarzi, out in California said, you know, I'll get rid of it, but Hunter was not singled out because he was the president's son, which is what Joe Biden said. And Democrats question why Joe Biden would criticize his own Department of Justice rather than just saying, look, I am a father, and my son has had problems, and he is now on the straight and narrow. So I am going to grant him a pardon. Democrats would have been okay with that, but just the fact that he blew up the Department of Justice, his own Department of Justice, and everybody in the Department of Justice who we've seen so far regarding these judges, they say, Mr. President, you're wrong on that.
Yeah, I think, to your point, I think people expected a form of clemency,
Right.
but if anything, it would be in the form of a commutation of a sentence. The fact of full-blown pardon and the 10-year duration smacks of the lack of accountability, responsibility, and corruption of this, frankly, mafia family that has held the country in its grips via the administration for so long. And it is such an affront to the hundreds of thousands of currently incarcerated people who are eligible for release under President Trump's First Step Act that are still rotting in jail. It flies in the face of all of those veterans, which are the single most rising population in the incarcerated system. What about them? They don't have a famous father that can pardon them. And it flies in the face of those single mothers who are also a rising representation of the incarcerated system, much like the mother of his child that he refuses to acknowledge. Like, everything about this is the elitism, the protection, the enjoyment that this family has that absolves them of any responsibility. And every other American has to pay taxes, has to answer to judges, has to answer to parents, has
Pay
to
your
answer
rent.
to everyone. Yes, has to pay rent. This is such a travesty, and it speaks, in my opinion, to the spinelessness of our commander-in-chief, the total invertebrate that he is, because he could have stood up and said, I want to protect my son,
Right.
but I want to teach him as a father would about responsibility. So I commute his sentence. And even that, by the way, it wouldn't have sit well with me, given that everyone else has to enjoy 4 walls and a cells. And now his son will never learn, and he will continue taking advantage of the American people. By the way, it doesn't protect him from future charges.
Right.
So let's
Well,
keep investigating.
well,
umbrage, umbrage, stiffing, stiffing, clemency, clemency, detractor, detractor, admonishing, admonishing, ramification, ramification, on the straight and narrow, on the straight and narrow, commutation, commutation, incarcerated, incarcerated, flies in the face, flies in the face, absolve, absolve, invertebrate, invertebrate.
If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date with future videos. Thank you for watching.